I'd like to talk about the Local Investment Commission, which was started in Kansas City some 15 years ago. LINC, L for local, IN for investment, C for commission. It has nothing to do with stocks and bonds. It has everything to do with investing in children's and families. It was started in November 1992, and LINC has been doing a better and better and better and better job and more effective job every year. What a record. Let's go back to prior to 1992. A man named Gary Stangler was the head of the Department of Social Services, state of Missouri. He put together 9 people from across the state, which he called a business roundtable, to take a look at his department to see how it could be run better. I was amazed. I was impressed. The Department of Social Services in every state in the nation is the biggest morass in state government. They handle things like abortions and child abuse and the welfare checks that don't get delivered, all the messy stuff. And he was asking us to look into the depths of his organization. We got a liberal education. That liberal education was that we learned about every facet, every activity of the Department of Social Services. The more I learned, the more I came to the conclusion that the department was not operating as efficiently or as effectively as it should. A simple example: trained social workers were sitting behind a desk making out reports hour after hour after hour instead of being out with clients where they should be and where they wanted to be. Frankly, I was becoming frustrated. Every time I saw Sue Ellen Freed, she'd say to me, "Well, how are things going with the roundtable?" And before I tell you about this particular answer, I want to tell you just a brief bit about Sue Ellen Freed. Sue Ellen Freed is a past national chairman of the Coalition for the Prevention of Child Abuse. She is one of the authorities in the nation on prevention of child abuse. She has spoken to over 90,000 students, teachers, principals, administrators, and parents on the subject of bullying and how to stop it. She's written books on the subject. She is not just an authority on bullying. She is the authority in the USA. And we are so fortunate to have her as a member of the commission. In this particular case, she asked me how it was going on the round table, and I explained how frustrated I was. She said, "You know, Bert, we're thinking of doing something in a small town in Kansas with the money for the prevention of child abuse. We're thinking of letting the people in the town have a voice in how that money is going to be spent." Sue Ellen, you may have just opened the doors. And for the next 2 weeks, every night, I worked on how this board of directors, which is now called a commission, how this organization, which is called LINC, would work. How the commission would work, what committees would be set up, how those committees would operate, and of course, how the commission itself would operate. There were 2 overriding principles. First, the people on the commission would have a voice in how money is spent for the social services in Kansas City. And secondly, we would not do what so many not-for-profits do. They go down to those people in the neighborhood and they tell them what they should do and how they should do it. No, we were going to the neighborhoods and we were going to listen. We were going to ask what the problems are. We're going to ask what they saw as a solution. We were going to ask what they wanted to do. Then we were going to help them do it. It's worked very well. One of the things that I think it's important to understand is that there is a great deal of work that has to be done. And LINC is doing some of that work in a way that is unique in this country. I called up Gary Stangler. And I said, Gary, the next time you're in Kansas City, why don't you stop in? I got something I want to bounce off of you. He was in Kansas City a few days later for another appointment. Stopped in my office. I made a presentation to him. He listened very attentively. At the conclusion of the presentation, he said, quote, "Good idea. Let's try it." At that moment, he gave up control of over $200 million. It's many times that today. Gary Stangler was the only person in his position in the United States who understood that less is more. The less the department has to say on how the money is spent, the more effectively it will be spent by citizens who know where it's needed most. A welfare mom called her social worker and said, if you're not busy tomorrow afternoon, I'd appreciate it if you'd come over to my apartment for coffee. Well, the social worker was just delighted. She had been trying to get close to this woman for months and months and had never been able to do it. When the social worker got there, the welfare mom said, "These are 3 other social workers. Each one of them has something to do with my family. I thought you should meet each other." Well, obviously now we send 1 social worker per family, except in extenuating circumstances. As we went to the neighborhoods, we learned one of the things that people really wanted to do was to learn more about child care, from grandmothers to small business owners. We concluded we could put together a manual in the office in about 10 days. Then we'd start classes. Is that what we did? No. We went to the neighborhoods and we talked to the people and said, what would you like to have in this manual? When we published the manual and started the classes 40 days later, we couldn't take care of the demand. Why? We had buy-in. They'd have a voice. They'd had a voice. And you know what? We haven't trained just hundreds of child care people. We have trained thousands of people to learn to know how to properly take care of children. It's a great story. Kansas City has the best record for people going from welfare to work and then retaining their job. We have the best record of going to work, but other cities are close. But you know what? If you ask them how long those people have been on or stay on the job, short time. We have the best record for one simple reason. What we do is we assign a caseworker to every new employee. So when that employee has problems with the company, instead of just getting upset, they call the caseworker. And the caseworker calms them down, talks to the company. And when the company gets upset with the employee, you're right, calm down. Jobs are saved. And I think that's important because the way LINC operates is that they find themselves doing things that are creative, that are effective, and get the proper results.